Hi there, my name is Amanda, and today I'm posting my Pan Those Eyeshadows project introduction for YouTube. I used to film this video back in 2020. I am now at a point where I feel like I'm using my makeup regularly. I want to get back into project panning, and I want to get back into posting on YouTube. So I'm very excited to introduce this project again on my channel. Disclaimer, my three kittens have decided that as I sat down, it is playtime, and I am trying to figure out best lighting, so I am just gonna let them do their thing while I'm filming. So Pan Those Eyeshadows, this is probably not the first video that you have ever seen from Pan Those Eyeshadows, so I'm not really going to go into the details, but everybody has their own rules and stipulations for their project. I'm going to be the same way. So I'm going to go through those rules. I'm going to talk about my current pan percentage, and then I'm going to show you the shades that are selected. So in my project, I'm going to focus on 5 eyeshadows at a time. Those are all going to come from different palettes. So I'm going to have 5 palettes in at a time, and I'm going to be randomly rolling in the palettes. In terms of the shades that are selected, that is going to be, I'm going to give myself a little creative liberty with that. Depending on how I'm feeling, I'm either going to randomize a shade to roll in, or if I see a shade that for some reason I really want to work on, whether it is, more seasonal for me, whether it is close to getting pan in it, then I will decide to focus on that. I'm going to just give myself more options in terms of how I select the shade, but I do want to randomize the palette that is rolled into the project. A different rule than what I used to do in this project is I'm going to allow myself to roll in shades that already have pan on them. The reason for that is because I haven't done an eyeshadow focus project in about 4 years, and the shades that have pan in them have been about as equally neglected as the shades that do not have pan in them in my collection. So I do want to allow myself to roll in those shades. And if I roll in a shade that has pan in it, I'm going to give myself a lower usage rule. I'm going to allow myself to focus on it for 10 uses, and hopefully that is expanding pan, kind of potentially evening out any shade that is left over in the pan. So I'm giving myself that option. And another reason for that is because there is one palette in my collection currently that has pan in every single shade, and I didn't want that palette to be neglected in this project because it is, again, as equally neglected as most of the palettes in my collection. So I want all of my palettes to be able to be touched within this project. So pan is the ultimate goal within this project. However, I am going to allow myself a 15 use threshold. For other shades, the opportunity, I want to allow other shades the opportunity to be rolled into the project. My 3 black cats just blending. There is another stipulation I'm going to add for myself. I'm also going to allow a shade to be rolled out if after 2 months I don't want to focus on it anymore. The reason for that, I anticipate there are going to be some shades rolled into the project that for me might not be, seasonal, or maybe are just more challenging to work on a regular basis. So again, for allowing other palettes their time to shine within the project, I'm going to allow myself to keep the project rolling. So I currently have 254 pans of eyeshadow within my collection. That does not count shades that have been finished in some of my palettes. And out of those 254 shades, I have 40 shades that have pan in them. So that is a pan percentage of approximately 15.7%. Ultimately, the goal is I want to have as many pans as I can. If I stay between 10 to 15%, that's great. If I exceed that, even better. So the palettes and the shades that I have rolled into the project have already been selected. All of the palettes and all of the shades this time were randomized, so I'm going to show them to you now. So the first shade comes from my Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. This is one of the palettes that I brought into my project, or I'm sorry, brought into my collection this year. And the shade that I rolled in is the easiest shade for me to work on. It is this first shade here. These don't have, they have names technically. This is Ethereal Eyes 1, so the first shade within the palette. So this I have already actually focused on a little bit before filming this video. I am going to just press reset and I will focus on this for at least 15 uses. This I anticipate is going to be very easy for me to work on because if I am setting my lids, which I typically do for every look, I have the opportunity to dip into the warm or cooler shades within this palette. So I think this will be very good, especially for work, to get my uses on. The other stipulation that or maybe challenge that I am hoping to give myself is that it's especially for shades like this, where I use a lid setting shade every time I do my eyeshadow, and I want to focus as much of the 15 uses within this palette as a whole as I can. I don't want to dip into 5 different palettes to create a look that is typically going to be able to be made within the eyeshadow, within one eyeshadow palette. I want to get to know my palettes as a whole better. So again, trying to get as much of my 15 uses within this palette as I can. The next shade that I rolled in comes from my ColourPop That's Taupe palette. And this palette is one that I bring with me traveling a lot. But the shade that I rolled in is one that I have only used maybe once or twice. And it is the shade down here in the corner called Rocksteady. So this is a brownish gray color. I think this will be a great transitioning into fall type of shade to work on. These cool tones will be easy. This could potentially be easy to wear for work looks. But this shade I'm actually kind of excited about because I don't know this shade super well. And if I'm giving myself the 15 uses to work on it, I'm hoping I'll be able to create a few looks that I like with this shade. The next palette that I rolled in is my Urban Decay Wild Greens palette. This palette I was very excited to roll in because this is going to be a potential declutter. When I bought this palette, I wanted to play with greens. I haven't done that to a point where I feel like I successfully made a look, meaning a look that I actually liked. But I am excited and glad that this was rolled in so that I can try to know this palette a little bit better. However, the shade that was rolled in is one that I actually know I like. It is the shade Lo-Fi here, and it has the most significant dip on it compared to anything else in here. The reason for that is because I have used this for a one and done type of look for work a few times. So I know that I like the shade, but I'm hoping, again, trying to challenge myself to use the palette as a whole. I already know I like it as a one and done shade, so I want to try to use it with other shades within this palette to try to create a full look, maybe trying to focus on it more as a transition shade. The next palette that I rolled in is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette. This is an older palette for me, so I am definitely happy to have this rolling in. And the shade that was rolled in is actually one of the shades that has pan in it, and it is the shade Cinder here. I know I like this shade, I am excited to use it. I am excited, well, maybe not excited, but I am hopeful that using this palette and using that shade is going to give me a better insight into whether this palette is still good quality. This is one of those palettes that I focused on this within my 2020 project, so this is minimum 4 years old. It's probably closer to 5 to 6 years old. So I want to get use out of these palettes and figure out, are these, shadows still worthwhile to keep around? Is the quality still there? Because I am finding that there are some palettes that I'm not reaching for very often, and my ABH palettes are one of them. So I am definitely happy to work on this. So this is one of the shades that has pan in it, so I'm only going to focus on it for 10 uses to just re-fall in love with the shade again. And the last shade that I rolled in comes from what I call my ColourPop Purple palette. So this palette is mostly depotted ColourPop palettes. I tried going with more of a cool toned theme, and the shade that I rolled in is actually a ColourPop single that I purchased, and it is the shade Earthshine. So this is one that has some use on it. I just don't tend to use it very often. I think part of the reason for that is because it is in a singles palette, which I just tend to neglect a little bit more than my actual, complete palettes. So I'm definitely excited to work on this shade. I think this will be a fun one to incorporate as the cooler months start rolling in. And like I said, I know I like this shade, so I feel like this is going to be a 15 uses, kind of see where I'm at, and then potentially work towards pan. I forgot to swatch, but this is my color story. I did not swatch the Makeup by Mario shade because it's just going to blend into my white skin. But you can see it has a little bit of like the warm, a little bit of the cool tones, a more like peachy-ish tone. So I get a little bit of variety in this. The randomization worked in my favor. And I feel like these are all shades that I can reach the 15 threshold and then roll out of the project, or again, working towards work the pan, or in the case of Cinder, the shade from the ABH palette, that's going to be a 10 use goal before I start rolling it out. If you're interested in seeing looks with these palettes, I do post makeup of the days on Instagram. My username is at useitupmakeup 2.0. My previous account I don't have access to anymore, unfortunately. But if you want makeup of the days, makeup empties, just things related to using your beauty products, inspiration, I would encourage you to check me out there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.